welcome everyone. Our guests are the 2022 IMMAF Pan American featherweight champion, Jonathan Powell, and his coach, Chad George, who is a BJJ black belt, multiple-time IBJJF world champion, and veteran MMA fighter. First of all, congratulations to Team USA. Congratulations to you, Jonathan Powell, for winning that gold medal. How does it feel to be a featherweight champion? And what does winning this gold medal mean to you personally and professionally?
Be honest, it feels great because there's a lot of hard work put into it. And it was a dream of mine to go out there and represent my team in the USA in some sort. So that was fantastic for me. And I represented my teammates at CMA and of course, Chad George. So that was my main focus for that.
Right on. And what do you think this means for you as an amateur? You move on to a record of 9-0, 9 wins. What does this mean for your career as far as a mixed martial artist?
I try not to look at it, as I'm 9-0. I take it day by day, fight by fight. I let Chad make the decisions of where my fight career is going next. I just put in the work and, show up. That's my main thing I'm looking for always. So it feels great. Feel like another fight, ready to do more. Just the beginning.
Right on. Now, Coach, how would you describe Jonathan Powell as a mixed martial arts competitor? What keywords would you use to describe him? And if you don't mind, give us a summary of him as a competitor and now champion.
Well, I guess the best way that I can sum him up as an athlete is a pain in my ass. That's but besides that, he's kind of in many ways like a son to me. He's in the gym every day. He's putting in the work. He's a kid that came in at a very young age and said he wanted to be a fighter, and we basically said, okay, cool. We'll go that route, but you have to do X, Y, Z, and then we'll see where that takes us. And he's done everything that's ever been asked of him, and now he's also starting to really form his own way of doing things, and it's really showing in his fights. Everybody that watches his fights, and I'm going to tell you something right now, you're probably like, what? Like, this kid's never wrestled. He didn't come from any kind of a wrestling background.
What? Really?
He never wrestled.
Wow.
And so that's just a testament to what this kid is doing in his own time, trying to get better and perfecting his craft because of where he wants to take this. Like he laughs because I always like to tell people that, but I like to tell people that because people don't believe it. Like, he'll out wrestle, some of these very top guys that have been in the game, and they've been doing this collegiately for a long time. And I'd be willing to bet though that the hours that he puts in the gym would be almost comparable to what these guys have done throughout their collegiate careers. And also, what people don't understand is he's been in the gym training, but he's out competing jiu-jitsu, competing all these things as much as possible. So, it's showing in what his abilities to do in the ring are because of what he does outside the ring, if that makes sense.
This is really fascinating because I was watching him fight, obviously on day 3 for the gold, and immediately he went for that double leg takedown slam, and it was probably the best takedown of the entire tournament. And now you're telling me he doesn't train any wrestling, which goes
no, we're not gonna say he doesn't train wrestling. The kid wrestles. He trains a lot of wrestling now.
Right.
He doesn't come from
wrestling,
a wrestling background.
Right. I meant, thank you for correcting me on that. But it's impressive because it shows that potential, right? And tell us, which gym are you guys at in California? Can you plug the gym?
Yeah, so we're at California Mixed Martial Arts, CMMA. We're located in Gardena, California. We've got
I believe you're frozen.
One of our coaches.
Sorry. Please continue. You froze for a second.
No. I said, we've got Victor Henry fights in the UFC. We've got a handful of other guys, Gabe Green. We've got guys in Bellator. And honestly, our most powerful roster on our team are up and comers like Jonathan. They're the ones that are really paving the way because of the work that they're putting in. And you'd come into our room and we've got 30, 40 guys in there. You don't know who's pro and who's not.
Very interesting. Follow-up question for you. Now, you're a veteran MMA fighter, and what are your thoughts on the quality of amateur MMA competitors and the development and potential of amateur MMA international? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll speak on this, and I'd like to hear Jonathan's, outlook on this as well. But I think that the international amateur scene is so much more developed than what we have stateside. And this was the Pan Am was a huge eye opener. Now, we were able to go in and implement our game plan, and these kids did an amazing showing. But to see what these other countries are doing and the access to this type of competition on an ongoing basis, what that does to your skill set and your mindset moving forward is something that we really need to pick up. And I think is only going to make the American amateur scene explode. And that's going to make our professional athletes even become better than they are. I mean, we're very dominant because of our wrestling, but once you add in this type of experience, there's nothing like it. I mean, fighting 3 times in 1 week for these guys to deal with the obstacles, and you're fighting national champions day after day, to be able to do that and have that under your wing, and then you go pro, there's nobody that you can look at and be like, you're going to bring anything new to the table.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think about that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. In terms of the scope of the international amateur MMA at the international level, you've competed there, and as your coach just mentioned, you're facing off against folks who are national champions from countries that have a more developed system, right? And
yes.
And what are your thoughts having competed there now and having dipped your toe into that highly competitive water? What's your opinion of international amateur mixed martial arts?
To be honest, it's different. That's what I can say. I can really say it's different, and it's a valuable lesson because I'm used to fighting in my territory around California, and my friends and my family around. So it prepared me to be like in a different world, different country, and it was a lot of pressure, and I felt more nerves than usual and I had to overcome some adversity in the fight because of it. But I think it's very essential to putting your career towards the pro levels, because it's when you travel out of the state, sometimes out of the country, to fight different people you don't even know about. Some people their fights on YouTube or on the internet. So it's just a different level of competition, and it's a route. If fighters are taking it seriously, fighting seriously, they should take this route as amateur.
Very interesting. What sort of feedback did you get from friends and family when you showed them the gold medal? What did they say?
I didn't show anybody the gold medal, to be honest.
Oh, what? You haven't showed anyone the gold medal?
No, wow. I took it straight to him, put it in our medal cabinet, and then that was it. I really don't like to hang around my championships too long. Don't want to mess with my.
Yeah, but you did tell friends and family, obviously, that you won gold. Yeah. Okay.
I got to talk to my family about it. My dad and my grandmother were very happy. So I'm just, want to make them proud and be the guy that they're raised to be. That's my main goal. And all the belts and championships. At the end of the day, I'm always going to be my grandmother's and my father's child. That's it. That's all I can say. And Chad's student. That's how I look at it.
What overall, in terms of when you look at the medal count, it's interesting because the U.S. came second, and they had a total of, I believe, 9 medals. I think the U.S. captured 5 gold medals, 1 silver, 3 bronze, and they came second overall in the medal count. What do you guys think this means for amateur MMA in the U.S.? What's the reaction from the community? Can you give me an idea of what sort of feedback you guys are getting from the scene out there in California and across the United States?
It shows the potential that we have. This is the first time 5 guys took gold in the tournament, and all these other teams, they come with 25 to 50 guys. So in the same division sometimes, so
right.
It shows the potential that the Americans have, and that we have something to bring that other countries aren't ready for.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a huge eye opener that now that we're getting involved in these cups and these games, I think that it's going to really change the dynamic of what's happening out there. Because if you look at the World Cup, and I'm pretty deep into my research of this stuff now, and you look at the Eastern Europeans, they're the ones that are dominating when we actually get to the finals of the World Cup. And that's, in my opinion, only because we haven't been as strong as what we could have been. And I think us winning what we've done in the Pan Ams is really setting that precedent that we are coming. Like Team USA is going to start building this program back up. And I really think that this was a huge statement.
It certainly was. I mean, I believe you guys sent 12 people there, and 9 of them made the podium, which is
Correct.
insane. You know, that's outstanding. Now, you mentioned you fought once a day over 3 days, right? Give us a summary of your match, and Coach, please feel free to jump in of your matches, and feel free to give us some insight. Starting off with your first opponent, Breno Yuri Santos from Brazil. What can you tell us about your first match on day one?
That was adversity right there. So it was kind of beforehand. It was a kind of a shit show getting to the getting to the fight. You know, so with the plane tickets and everything, but stepped into the cage, bell rang, and I was ready to go. And I kind of got lazy in some positions where I almost paid for it. But after I defended those submissions and attacks, I woke up and I started to pressure and I played my game, which won me the fight. He was a good, hands on to him. He was a good fighter. You know, he was a jiu-jitsu purple belt, and he showed great attacks. And it can't knock anything off of him.
I would like to say also, you know, there was a lot of things that happened leading up to that first fight. I mean, we almost didn't get him. Like, we had ticket issues getting into the terminal. I know you're in Canada, so you're not too familiar. There are no direct flights from LA to Monterrey, so we had to drive from LA to San Diego, which is a 2-hour drive, walk across the border to Tijuana, Mexico, and fly from Tijuana to get to Monterrey. And when we got to the airport, we had some issues with the tickets, and they didn't have a ticket booked for John. And so we had to rush, and they said there was no more flights available. So we had to figure some stuff out, and we ended up getting one. We get out there, and that was just like the start of the beginning of everything that was going to happen. And then I'm not sure if you've been to Mexico, but all of us, we made the number one rule mistake was don't drink the water.
No.
So when Powell made the joke about it being a shit show, it really was.
It was literal.
What's that?
It was a literal shit show.
You know, so those are the things, like, not only are you doing your first international fight, we're dealing with all these things, and now you're dealing with stomach issues as you're leading into a fight against a very tough opponent, you know? So those are the things that he had to overcome, and then he did. And then, you know, he ended up going to the next round.
Fascinating. And I mean, it makes for a great story, I suppose, ultimately. And you speak of that resiliency and that focus. I got to ask you a question, Coach. And I'll jump slightly to day number 3 for the gold medal match. Particularly, I watched that you guys, as you were walking out to the cage, at one point, it's as if you guys were almost doing like a group meditation of sorts, some sort of sports psychology. Can you kind of give us a summary of that in terms of your coaching approach and how you coach athletes to develop them to be in the present and so on?
So, I mean, you're pretty spot on with what that is, right? So it's something we do with our team. It's a check-in, right? So what it is, I get my athletes to start breathing and release all the nervous energy. And we do these deep breaths, and that way, so when they're opening their eyes and their energy is clear, the only thing they can hear is my voice. That way, so when they step into that cage, the energy is calm. They're ready to do what they can do or what they're supposed to do. And then my voice is like the joystick to the video game.
Very cool. I think it's awesome to see coaches utilize, sports psychology in their coaching and so on, especially for the sport of mixed martial arts, which is still fairly new, right? It's only been around in the Americas here for maybe 30 years. I think next year UFC turns 30 years old, so it hasn't been around that long. And I think the mental game at this level, be it amateur or pro, is the real sort of determining factor when you have such talented competitors, physically and in terms of their ability, also skill sets, but it's also the mind that's the big X factor. Moving on to day 2, Jonathan Powell, you face off against a fellow American named David Camacho. Tell us about this match here.
We knew that he was going to be very aggressive and hard to hold. So the game plan was that Chad and Victor Henry gave me was to stay in his face. And once I get him down, don't rush any positions and cook him until I can cook him and then find a submission. By cooking, I mean just, wear and tear on him, drag him to deep and find my kill.
Have you trained with this guy before? Is he from California or Texas or?
He's from Florida.
Florida, okay.
Never trained with him before, but we watched a lot of fights on him, and we were prepared for. We knew that we were expecting him to do certain type of things, and then he did them, and then I capitalized on him. Great guy all around. We all had lunch afterwards. He was a great guy.
Can you guys hold the food down or the next day or not because of the water?
No, after the third day. Sorry,
my
bad.
After the okay, fair enough.
Yeah, weight back and
right.
We had
Coach, what are your thoughts on his match there on day 2 against Camacho? What can you tell us about that?
We knew that kid was going to be tough and dangerous. That was one of those things that because he's from the stateside, there was a lot more video available on him than anybody else. And we knew at some point we were probably going to match up. And, it's not great to fight, a countryman in this type of a tournament, but sometimes that's what has to happen. And what these guys did really well, they didn't care who it was. It didn't matter if it was a guy from the States, if it was from another country. Hell, like my guys are so ready to go that they'll fight one of their teammates if that's what's called upon them, and go back to what you're saying earlier about the mind. I would say that's probably the biggest aspect that we work in our academy is the psychology of the mind when it comes to sports, because you can't make it through a tournament like this without having a strong mind. That is just impossible. There's, cutting weight every day, dealing with all the dramatics of that. And then fighting, like you said earlier, some of the best guys in those countries. That's not easy. So the mind's got to be ready. And, when he went against this kid, it wasn't like, oh man, I'm going against this kid. It was like, I have a job to do. This is how I'm going to beat him. And I have to stick to it.
Very interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
I will say I did have a head start on him because for a month in training, we were preparing for him because we thought we were going to fight him in the first round. So like, oh, you're going to go against David Camacho in the first round. So we trained for a month specifically on that guy. So I feel like I kind of had a head start on him.
On the start of day 3, Coach, what was, you're observing your fighter here. What was he like on day 3, knowing he was going to be fighting for the gold? What could you observe from him?
He was warmed up. Like that's the best way to say it. Like the first 2 days was him getting into his groove, and that third day, that was the kid that I've been training. Like the first 2 days, like day 2 was good. Day 1, it was a little rusty, but that's common. Like when you do tournaments, the first match of a tournament in like jiu-jitsu or wrestling is always a little rusty. It's like you're trying to get going, and then as the tournament goes on, you tend to loosen up, and that's exactly what he did. Like going into the finals, he had a swag to him, and I was like, man, this kid's gonna have to bring something special if he's going to be able to make it out of this thing. And it was our night. Or our afternoon, I guess.
Right, and obviously, that kid he was facing was the silver medalist, Said Cruz Reyes from Mexico. Jonathan, when you made the walk over to the cage, what was going through your mind? And when you stepped into the cage, what was the first thought that came to mind? If you, I know it's a random sort of tough question to ask, but to take us into that scenario, when you stepped into the cage, what was your first initial feeling?
That I won.
Wow. Okay.
Because I knew, I looked him in his eyes before the day before day 2, we did a face off, and then I just knew in my heart that he didn't want to be there with me.
Damn.
When he came out and he changed his style, that the first is day 1 and day 2, he had a relentless style where he just pressed forward and that's how he beat his guys. But when he fought me, he was very hesitant. And that's when I saw him come out hesitant, I was like, okay, I won. Because he's gonna fight my fight.
And I mean, if folks are if they want to see the fight, they need to see this fight here, because immediately, I think it's like 10 seconds into the match, you, as I mentioned earlier, you go for a double leg and you slam him. And I mean, you can listen to the commentators right from there. You've made this statement, and it was probably the best takedown, I think, for the entire tournament. I haven't seen all the matches, but I'm just going to say it either way. Tell us what, at that moment, when you knew you had the takedown and you went, you were inside control, transition to mount. At that point, did you, like you mentioned, you knew you were going to win, but in your mind, what was the strategy for this particular match? What was your coach telling you in regards to how to approach Said Cruz Reyes?
So we thought and we expected him to be very attack at all times. We thought he was gonna be relentless and put up a good fight, but he out wrestled every guy day 1 and day 2. But in my mind, I was like, he's never been wrestled. Those guys weren't wrestling back. So I wanted to see how he would feel when I start to wrestle him. And then, when I felt him, I was like, okay, this is he's never had this done to him before. And you ended up, you dominated round number 1. You almost finished it with an arm triangle. And I believe it was like the last 15 seconds or so. And then he almost transitioned into an arm bar. Coach, what did you tell him at the end of round number 1? And what sort of advice did you give him?
What round did we finish him in? Second round. Okay. That's what it was. Well, what it was is, I remember when we got that takedown, I asked him, I said, look, we can do this all day long. And he was like, yes, sir. Because one thing we noticed about this kid, he was very scrambly. He was good at grabbing things. He was good at making space. But when I saw him not be able to do that, when he couldn't move, when John was on top of him, I was like, oh, okay. Because now the things that we were not worried about, but we were giving him credit for, was no longer a threat. And now when you've got a guy that's no longer a threat and you've got somebody extremely hungry on top of you, it's now just a matter of going and getting your food. It's like, it's time to eat.
And you certainly ate. You applied an anaconda choke in the corner. I mean, 38 seconds into round number 2, and you finished it. And I mean, even the commentators were popping for that one. How did it feel to finish? The gold medal, to finish for the gold medal match via the anaconda choke, a submission hold?
It felt great. That's what our gym is based off of, front headlock. So it felt satisfying to do that. And I just knew that I had a chip on my shoulder going into it, because there was all this thing about the Mexican pride, and they do have that, they're hard to finish and they're hard to break. And I had it in my mind that I was gonna go out there and I was gonna break him. I didn't care if it was anaconda, rear naked choke. I just knew that at the moment when I tapped him is the moment he gave up, because he didn't want to be in there with me anymore. So that was my whole mindset going into that. I just grabbed anything. I'm like, oh, it's right there, so might as well get it.
I mean, it's a spectacular way to finish the match. So congratulations to you. I have a few more questions, guys. I appreciate your time. What was the overall experience like in Monterrey? I know obviously you made the mistake drinking the water, but beyond that, what was the vibe like with having all these great teams from across Central and South America and the Caribbean there? What was the mood like, but behind the scenes?
It was awesome. I mean, the first day or two, there's a little bit of tension even between like our own country, like, because we don't know each other. Right. But as the days went on, there became a unity that built, and like the Team USA really started getting behind each other, and we became a team in just a couple of short days, and that was pretty amazing. But you could see the other countries coming in with that same mentality, And then it was pretty cool watching, even with Jonathan Powell, some of these other countries getting behind him and cheering him on as he moved on in the tournament. That was really amazing.
Which country was getting behind Jonathan Powell?
Jamaica.
We had Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow, very, very cool. What in terms of which team impressed you the most overall in terms of the quality and depth and range of their competitors and what they showed inside that cage? Which team beside the U.S. impressed you the
honestly,
most?
like there were some guys from like Aruba that really were impressive. Some of the guys from Colombia. I mean, every country brought some very talented guys.
Jonathan, your thoughts on that? Same question for you.
Yeah, I was I can say Aruba too. David Camacho's teammate. I forget his name, but he was from Aruba and he impressed me a lot. He went out there and fought his heart out. And the guys from Mexico too, they come to win. You know, that's their mentality. They come to win at all costs.
Yeah, I think you're right. That team really represented. I mean, they came out first, but every match they really gave 110%. Last question for you guys. What's next for you, and what's next for Team USA as far as future IMMAF tournaments?
That is a question for Chad. I follow his lead. Everyone asks me this. I'm like, you guys have to tell Chad because he is the one that really decides everything. He's been through this game for a very long time, so he knows what path I should take, you know. And I trust him in that, and I trust him in, you know, in him lead me that way.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know, for him, you know, there's a lot, but he's pretty much ran through whatever there is here in California. You know, he was the first 4-time state champion that the state's seen. He's won the state championship 4 times against the best guys in the state. Then we went to the Pan Ams, and now we're really our sight is on the Worlds. So we want to go do that. That challenge of 5 fights in 5 days, I think, is something that's going to be an unbelievable experience, not just for him as an athlete, but me as a coach as well. We'll be bringing our other athlete, our other fighter that was on the same event, Shane Collins, who also took gold. He'll be doing the World Cup as well. And, you know, I think it's a great thing for these guys to train for. And, you know, it's supposed to be in like November, I think is what they were talking. And if we get something in between, cool. If not, then our focus is on that. And we'll see what happens after.
Well, it's really it's great to see the U.S. go out there and represent, and more importantly, you know, at the end of the day, I think seeing international amateur mixed martial arts grow and develop is outstanding for the sport. Congratulations to you again, and congratulations to you, Coach. Thank you both for your time, and I'll be following along. I'll be following you on Instagram, and I'll see more of your matches on IMMAF.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Nice.